Hello there everybody, and welcome to another revisited and reworked build of mine, the Reaver Golem build. So, the Reaver's got a little bit reworked in the previous update, and I wanted to revisit that build. To my great pleasure, it still works pretty much the same as it did before, but two things. I did optimize a little bit the workflow of this build and the later stages of the build as well. So we're going to go here over one of the most stupidly powerful builds that I have played since a while, and let's get right into it. So we're working here with pack tactics because pack tactics is amazing for a build like that. We are incredibly swarmy. The problem is pack tactics is not applying to your golems. It will apply though to your backliners. And your backliners happen to be very hard hitting archers, and that just makes them pretty amazing. The other traits I picked up, resistant and hardy, were mostly for giving the backline some survivability, as we are totally reliant on golems in terms of frontlining. With the traits, I went for one with mana channelers, because that goes without saying. We can just churn out golems on the fly, and that is very, very, very powerful. Although, I gotta say, you can easily exchange this trait, because as a matter of fact, most of the golems you will use will be trained in your cities. So that, just as a side note, it gives you some insane early game momentum nevertheless. And the second one I pick up is Fabled Hunters. This gives us stronger ranged and skirmishers and a starting ranged unit to begin with. This is incredibly powerful. This gives us much more rewards when we're clearing out the area, and at the same time we're also, well, powering up what we are already good at. I really like this one. So let's go to the tome section. Here, not much has changed since the past. So we are rocking in the first place enchantment tome to pick up the copper golems. This is just your main backbone of your army. The spell tempered shields can be avoided for later. These will power up your iron golems later down the road. Purging arrows is really amazing, as it will power up your mage locks in terms of stripping, making them able to strip buffs off of the enemy and hit a little bit hard against magic origin units. And Sundering Blades makes it so that the longer you whack something, the more it bleeds. That's a wonderful synergy. Awakened Tools gives your cities a nice productivity push. Can be really, really useful at times if you have the mana to spare. And the Runecarver's Camp helps us out with draft needs. The Tome of Zeal is the natural next neighbor for that. You might be tempted to get into the Tome of Evolution to get the copper golems faster into their bronze golem status, but this is not nearly as effective as this. This gives us a nice bonus for damage via Legion of Zeal and Inspiring Chant. Mind you though, the golems only get 50% of the morale bonus. They do get the strength bonus nevertheless. The Zealots don't find too much use in this build. Condemnation is pretty nice insofar as it makes the enemy more vulnerable against immobilization and other shenanigans. Fanatical Workforce rounds up our super powerful city productivity steroid combination. In the tier 2 sector, we are pretty one-sided. There's Tome of Artificing, opening up the Iron Golem access, which is to us really important, as the Iron Golem is our major tier 3 frontliner. They're just massive in terms of damage sponging, and also, well, they buff up the back line of yours. They're really just very, very powerful and desirable. Artisan Armaments is really cool in powering up all of the stuff that you have on your army. There's pole arms that will get more powerful, and shields that would get more powerful, and siege magic, yeah, well, it powers up your overseers, but that's about it. Well, it leaves a little bit to desire, but Iron Golem and Golem Assistant and Golem Mine, well, the Golem Mine is cool for the gold income. That's really, really neat. But the Golem Assistant is a free troop here again, and we get something to bash down cities easier and something to defend our cities better. So That's a nice package. The Tome of the Construct is the other neighbor that we're picking up, but it is also the most skippable tome in this sector. I would like to introduce the Dot here for this build to swap instead of the Construct Tome into the Tome of the Glades second to get that aspect of the root into your kit, just as an idea. But to stay true to the Golem path, well, we still stick to the construct here. So it gives us trainable bronze golems. They naturally evolve out of our copper golems, but these guys have an AoE weakening attack, and they do the same as your copper golems, just better. That's really pretty much all I can say. There are the cascading command spells in here. So the cascading spells are just being repeated when there is a construct or a linked mind dude next to it. So yeah, target friendly construct or linked mind unit. So that means if you clunker up your units appropriately, you can get yourself a free defense mode after acting and a free extra retaliation attack while being allowed to attack the whole turn. That sounds not much, but in a bigger picture, this means you can attack and stay on the defense in the same turn, which is a pretty bonkers move and overpowered as hell if your positioning is right. And the cascading reposition command allows you the offensive move. It's the same thing, can be applied to your entire army if they're clunkered together, and it gives you a hastened effect and a strengthened effect. Here it's mostly about the hastened effect. Very fast movement. And again, another retail attack. So this package in combination with linked mines, immunity against flanking, mind you, is amazingly powerful, as basically this makes your frontline nigh vulnerable. You can dish out damage and stay on the defense at the same time, and you can be extremely mobile with that haste buff. On top of that, we gain compounding defense, which just boosts up our golems a little bit more in terms of resilience, as if they weren't already hard enough to kill. Also, we gain experienced warsmith, which gives our golems some extra healing capabilities. Love that. There's also the worker construct nexus, which, well, just boosts up whatever there's already here. It's a nifty thing with extra production bonus. I like that. So, Tier 3 comes, and we enter the Dreadnought Tome. This is just the natural fit for the Reavers, and I personally think this makes the Reavers to one of the strongest Golem users out there. So, we got Warding Metals, which gives your shields and constructs +3 resistance against magic attacks. Now, see, normally, golems are quite balanced because they are pretty impervious against physical damage and archers, and it's fair because they're vulnerable against magic damage. Until they are no longer, because you boosted it up with this. So this is a super powerful little thing, and don't skip it. Tuning Kits gives your supporters the overcharge ability. It's a free ability, and it turns your construct of choice into a self-stunning machine of destruction. The thing about this one is that, well, it can be applied basically to every unit on the battlefield because you're so versed in constructs. So that's pretty nifty. Pinning Barrage and Destabilized Monocore have both a massive synergy with the Reaver Culture on itself, as the marked stacks really are super nice. The Great Bombard is cool for sieges, and the Ironclad gives you a artillery mythic construct unit for your sieging needs, so that's pretty nice. War Foundry gives you some extra draft if you ever need it. The real takeaway here is the +1 rank on whatever units are produced. If you stack enough of these, it can be really, really cool. And Artillerist is a pretty nice thing for your battle-versed heroes. So, where I now go differently path-wise is I go here for a Tome of Subjugation next. In the original version, I went for the Transformation Tome, which is, well, or Transmutation Tome. You can pick it up, it ain't bad, but I really think you don't need the economy bonuses in there. The Battle Mage in here is quite anti-synergistic. The nuke spell is not too desirable because your spellbook is already crammed with buff spells that you want to fling every freaking turn. So, yeah. leaves adaptive armor and steel skin being really good, but if we check out the subjugation tome instead, we gain intimidating aura, which annihilates the enemy's morale by just standing next right to them with the majority of our army. There's subjugating raid, which gives our cities more population. The Reavers are really often raiding people, so subjugating raid is a massive takeaway for these guys. The Baron's Palace is really cool if you are odd on just conquering stuff, and the Tyrant Knight gives you a sweet tier 4 shock unit that, well, I personally think you can always use a tier 4 shock unit at the end of the day. This one opens up the motive of destroying the enemy's morale. This is really good because we are already extremely good at grinding down and weighing down the enemy. The alternative that you can take here for this build now would be also Sanctuary. This is a less offense and morale warfare based playstyle and goes into Keeper's Mark for insane survivability on your entire front line, Salvation for a blitz heal spell, and Anointed People for even more annoying hard to kill shenanigans on your backline. Consecrated Domain and Healing Spires would keep your city safe, and the other things in here are good against sieges. And it even goes so far as Tome of the Cleansing Flame is also a pretty nice fit here. We have already Zealous Troops. This thing triggers off of Pole Arms and Zealous Troops. The Pyre Templar here is really, really good. So really choose to your own liking. The last tier 3 is very, very open to your own liking. And at the end of the day, Tome of Severing for the Severing Golem and Tome of the Golden Realm for the Gold Golem. Well, the other way around. The gold golems are just boss. They are among the, in my humble opinion, they are among the strongest tier 5 units in the entire game because they have such an insane access to stuns and an infinite retaliation. These go really, really good in your build. So it's very straightforward. Not that much has changed, but I feel like the deeper dip into order for this build is so much stronger than my older iteration. So let's talk roster. You will be skipping all of this. Harriers and mercenaries don't matter for your build. Instead, go for observers. They are constructs after all. So jokes aside, observers give you a mark stack on a range of 10, and marks increase the damage of your ranged units. Your entire gameplay style revolves around sending melees in and finishing the enemy then off with your stupidly hard-hitting mage locks. They gain a 10% extra bonus per mark stack, so you can crank that up by 50%. Mark stacks also make the enemy easier to hit, so this is just your finisher. Mage locks are very important for your build, as are overseers. These guys are, when it comes to the attacks, well, not so much to write home about, but their blindness has a really nice effect. You can deactivate enemies' retaliation attacks with that, and if you don't need any healings from their side, it's a pretty cool thing to try to deactivate the enemy's retals before you let your frontline engage. It's also good against the enemy's range attackers, obviously. Their heal spell is very powerful, but it's a touch heal, so that's pretty meh. But the cooldown is luckily not that high, and you also get to subdue whatever is immobilized. So we don't have so much access to immobilization beyond the spells, but once we have tier 3, we can really go places with that. So tier 3 comes, and the Bronze Golem is your main offensive frontliner. These guys are really, really, there's not much to say about them. They're just like Copper Golems, not just better. They have a really good strike. They can weaken people in a 1-hex cone. What's more to say? I really like these. The runes in this build are not much used, as we really prefer mage locks on all iterations or mage lock cannons. So mage lock cannons are really cool as they benefit from all the ranged bonuses that our mage locks do. They just have an attack that always hits. So in the tradition of constructs, these guys are really, really cool as they will benefit from all the construct enchantments that we got. So we really don't need the Dragoons too much. This build pretty much opts out of these skirmishers, but you can still use the skirmishers if you really need them to beat enemies that well, are really hard to hit with ranged attacks. When your mage locks can't really go on top of an enemy because they have just too many traits that protect them from ranged attacks, you might want to swap it to the hard-hitting melee attacks of these guys. But in all honesty, you might as well just swap over to mage lock cannons instead. So I really don't see too much room for these here. Gameplay-wise, we want to expand and conquer cities as quick as possible. As Reavers, free cities are a ways and means to milk us vassals, money, and everything we require. We don't face any negative repercussions for unjust war declarations, and therefore, well, this build is very straightforward. You just spam out copper golems until you can't afford them anymore, and you start conquering the world. And as soon as you can't afford new, you just keep spamming. The thing here is what you really need to worry about and take care about is that all of your units of these guys, they evolve eventually, and that's when their budget, when they weigh a lot heavier on your budget. As you see here, the costs for this guy versus the costs for this guy. So you see there is quite a steep increase, and this is something you always need to keep an eye out for. But this is still one of the most straightforward builds that I've ever played, with the nice takeaway now that with the dip into the order and the changes that the Reaver Culture has experienced, it just became even better. Now your gameplay is you spam out the frontline attacks with your golems, and then you try to just finish off what you can with your ranged attackers. That's pretty much it. It's very straightforward, easy to play, super much fun, and one of the most powerful builds that I have so far played. I mean, I have taken on the strongest player. That time she was rank 1. After war with me, she's rank 3. So it's just incredibly annoying, as if any of your frontliners die, you just summon new ones. Don't fret, if any of your copper golems die, it doesn't matter, you just summon a new one. 30 gold, 30 mana, boom, boom, boom. You just keep going. It is really, really that crazy, and the major enemy of yours is your economy. This build has a not so strong economy, even though, well, that's not true. You are on the materium side of things. You have a lot of skills that you can get into. The problem is just you have so much momentum that it is almost impossible to fill your shoes with the amount of mana and gold required. But this means that you can grow as fast as your resource income allows you to, which is an amazing trait. So all in all, just spam the golems, spam some mage locks and some overseers, and you got yourself an army. This is really cool about this build, and I love it. Later in the game, replace your bronze golems with the quality golems wherever you need them. And one last thing about them iron golems. That's one thing that I meant to say. The iron golems are your utility part in the roster. They don't dish out nearly as much damage as the bronze golems, but they got a really, really overpowered defense mode skill. Unlike other shield units, they give more defense points than other units, and that's what really makes them shine. So you should have a couple of these for the sake of these insane defense bonuses. So, my dear friends, overrun the enemy with this build. I mean, not much has changed except for the playstyle. I would say the tomes stayed mostly the same, but the focus wandered way heavier towards a main backbone of 4 to 5 mage locks that finish off the enemy, which is incredibly fun, incredibly rewarding, and yeah, build is better than ever. That's all I can say. So, yeah, the leader question. You guys love to know what leader to pick. I would honestly fare with the champion leader, because you might be summoning a lot of your golems, but you also will be training a lot of your high-profile units eventually. Champion helps a lot in keeping things cheap, affordable, and it's generally a very good frame for every swarmy build, in my humble opinion. Last but not least, for the heroes, well, it is the usual things. Every mouse rejuvenation you can pick up for this build makes you incredibly stronger, because the more staying power you put onto this build, the better. All you need to do is skill your heroes to glue up your golems on the front line, and you will see immediate success. There are a couple of things that you should definitely always pick up, like experienced warsmith. This is amazing, and the golem assistant is also very, very good. Mark target and focused aggression. Focused aggression, especially for your heroes. I mean, the most of them you recruit always automatically have that, but don't sleep on that, as it makes your heroes so much more potent. Now, not much more to say. I hope you enjoyed the build. Leave me your comments down below. Leave a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Check out the description box with a hefty playlist. And feel free to support the channel financially via Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, channel memberships, whatever pleases you. And thanks for supporting the channel. And a big thanks for watching this video. See you all in the next one. And enjoy yourselves. Bye bye.